If you haven't gotten into podcasts for learning Spanish yet, or you feel like the content that you're currently listening to is a bit dry, I think this video is going to be really helpful for you. When it comes to Spanish learner content, there's so much material out there, partially because Spanish is such a popular language to learn, and also because there's so many Spanish speakers all over the world. So I'm going to list out some of my favorite podcasts at around the intermediate level, and you can check them out and see if any of them work for you. Just for your reference, I'd categorize myself as about an upper intermediate level when it comes to comprehension, so a lot of my suggestions will be around that level of difficulty, but I also have some of my lists that are a bit easier that I listen to when I'm driving or just waking up in the morning, and I also have some that are a bit harder because it's always good to challenge yourself. The categories that I made up for this video are podcasts that I like, podcasts that I love, and S tier podcasts that I love so much I'd pay money to get more of them. There's only one podcast in that territory, and I'm actually part of their Patreon. Let's start with like, and the first podcast in this category is the Intermediate Spanish Podcast. Cesar, the host of this podcast, has some really interesting thoughts about so many different topics, from censorship to generational crises to does money really bring people happiness? And he's always fair while also being really forthcoming with his beliefs. And the unfortunate reason why he's in the like category instead of the love category is fully a me issue. His voice is just way too smooth. Obviously, this is an objectively great quality, but the problem is me. I'm a sleepy girl. I'm really good at tuning things out, and I cannot get through an episode without falling asleep or having my mind wander off. Aprende Mexico is a new podcast that I found recently, and it's fantastic. I really enjoy the topics that they cover, and their episodes are really long, so they have time to really dig into whatever they're discussing that day. The length of it also helps me to hit my listening goal without having to think too hard. Noitos is a really fun podcast, and I definitely say it's on the upper side of upper intermediate. They're two Mexican guys talking about relevant political and cultural topics that I don't always feel like get addressed in learner content. Sometimes in the middle, I feel like my comprehension goes down a little bit just because they're using different words that I might not have been introduced to before, but I think the challenge is good. Moving on to love, Spanish with Vicente is a long-term favorite of mine. He has a huge catalog of podcasts, and just something about his energy makes it impossible for you to not be engaged the entire time. One thing that's super unique to Vicente's podcast is that he'll sometimes start an episode with a question from a listener. For example, what's the difference between por and para? He'll tell some story from his life, but he'll place an emphasis on por and para, for example, so that you can learn the usage in context. Second in the love category is Español con Juan. If you haven't heard of him, where have you been? In my head, he's like the king of Spanish learner YouTube. What I love about Juan is that he rambles and he muses, and in doing so, he repeats a lot of the same words and phrases over and over again. So at the end of an episode, whatever he's talked about, I'm never forgetting. That stuff is just planted in my brain forever because he's repeated it so many times, and it's really helpful as a learner. How to Spanish is definitely a comfort listen for me. They're a husband and wife team, and they talk all things Mexican culture and beyond. They drop a new episode every Monday like clockwork, and you can bet I'm listening to that as soon as it drops. It's a great way to start off the week. Now, last in my love category is Spanish Gitana. She's definitely on the easier side to me, but I love her so much I just listen to her on like 1.25 or 1.5 speed. I don't know why, but she just seems like the type of person I'd be friends with in real life. Her personality and her humor come through so well in her videos, so definitely a must listen. And now we finally made it to the final category. We're on S tier, God tier, top of the top. If I've ever talked to you about Spanish content before, I have definitely mentioned this podcast to you. It's Que Pasa. I don't know what it is, but something about Juan and John just works, and I eat it up every time. They have great chemistry, they're hilarious, they're so entertaining that even if they were speaking in English, I'd still listen to them because it doesn't even feel like learner content. Their pace feels supernatural while also being comprehensible, which I feel like is really impressive, and they'll talk unfiltered about pretty much anything. It just feels like you're hanging out with friends, but by the end of the episode, you've learned so much. And I like to take a few seconds of this video to talk to Juan and John directly. I think your episodes are too short, and when they end at 22-23 minutes, I take that personally. I'm begging you to please extend the length of your podcast episodes. I'd really appreciate it. So yeah, if you guys haven't listened to Que Pasa yet, I would highly recommend that you give it a shot. I don't think there's any podcast like theirs out right now, and it is definitely the best in my book. So let me know in the comments if you guys have listened to any of these podcasts before. If you try one out because of my suggestion, please let me know what you think. And if there's any podcast that you love that I missed, please let me know down in the comments because I'm in a little bit of a listening rut right now. I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and otherwise, hasta la próxima.